Los Angeles, a city full of shine and dreams, but also of pain and harsh realities between the most famous places and the forgotten streets. There is much that goes unseen when the sun begins to rise the city. Sparkles, but beneath it, in the shadows there, are stories no one knows. And it is there in the most forgotten parts of the city that a nameless dog walks. He is only known as Ghost. He has no owner, no friends, no place to call home. He roams the streets, alone, his eyes filled with silent sadness, as if carrying something heavy that no one can see. His right paw, always hidden, holds a secret. Every step he takes is a struggle. He walks with difficulty, as if his whole body is too tired to keep going, but no one notices. No one cares. He is just another invisible dog wandering through a city that does not see him, ignoring his pain. He knows something is wrong, but he doesn't know how to ask for help. He is aspect or a shadow, a solitary being in a world where no one looks at him. The dogs seem to be a part of the city, always passing through the same places without drawing attention. He didn't ask for anything, only watched the people who came and went. Mark Stevens Market, Thesmal Cafe on the corner, and the dark alleys where the sun never reached Butone Day. Something different happened. The dog, as if sensing something, left his hiding place and suddenly stopped in front of a man, Johnny Depp. The actor was walking down the sidewalk when he suddenly saw the dog standing there, staring at him, intensely surprised. Johnny stopped, and for a moment he just watched the animal. The dog, who usually avoided eye contact, now slowly approached and barked softly, as if trying to get his attention. Johnny slowly crouched down, feeling that something was happening. He extended his hand, trying to get closer to the dog, and unlike with others, the dog didn't run away. He looked Johnny in the eyes, as if finally finding someone who could see his pain. Then a rough voice from a man interrupted. "Are you interested in?" the dog asked Mark Stevens, the market owner. His voice had a tone of disdain, as if he couldn't understand why anyone would pay attention to a filthy animal like that. "I don't know what you see in him, he's just a problem," the man said again. Johnny looked at him, trying to understand Mark's coldness, but before he could respond, the man continued with a bitter smile. "He's worthless, he just wanders around, rubbing against people, trying to get attention. If you're looking for a dog, it's definitely not him, he's all dirty and sick." Johnny felt a strange mix of compassion and indignation. He knew the dog had something more, something that Mark would never see in his lifetime. He wanted to respond with more words, but instead he calmly approached the man. "Sometimes the suffering is so hidden that people prefer to ignore it," Johnny said, his voice soft but full of a subtle sorrow. Mark, however, was unmoved by Johnny's words. He took a step back with a gesture of impatience. "Look, my job here is to sell, not take care of sick dogs. If you want to help the animal, go ahead, but don't expect me to care." The tone was so harsh that Johnny felt a chill. His heart grew heavier with sadness and empathy for the animal, imagining how it must feel to be in such an environment, treated so inhumanely. Mark continued, "It's not my problem and it's not anyone's. If I were you, I'd just leave him here. If he dies, it won't change anything." Johnny remained silent for a moment, absorbing the cruelty in those words. Mark's indifference was like a wall of ice, impenetrable and bitter. "Too will do what I can for him," Johnny said, his voice stronger now, like a promise. The dog, for a brief moment, exposed his paw. Johnny saw it, and what he saw left him stunned. A tumor, subtle, but definitely there. Desperate, Johnny rushed the dog to a trusted vet as quickly as possible. After a careful examination, the diagnosis was alarming. The dog had a rare tumor, something caused by exposure to chemicals, something that hinted at a darker story than he had imagined. "It's a miracle he survived this long," said Thevet, "but treatment is possible if we act fast." The question lingered in the air. Where had the dog come from? Who had subjected him to something so cruel? As Johnny investigated further, he made a discovery that changed everything. The dog had been part of an experiment in a secret lab. He hadn't been abandoned, but as part of a cruel research project. The suffering he had experienced was the result of something much more horrific than Johnny could have imagined. And there was more. Michael Mark's son had worked in that lab somehow. He was connected to all of this. Johnny didn't want to be just a spectator in this story. He couldn't stand by. Watching a dog who had suffered so much, he wanted to change Ghost's fate, and at the same time change how people saw these animals. He organized fundraising campaigns, cared for the dog, and began raising his voice against animal experimentation cruelty. The dog, now named Phoenix, became a symbol of more than just a fight for life. He was proof that even in suffering, there is an invisible strength that can transform us. He was an example of resistance, showing the world that the deepest wounds can heal. If we give them a chance with treatment. Phoenix survived. The tumor was removed, but the history of his pain would never be forgotten. Mark, who had once seen the dog as a burden, now saw him as the last connection to his lost son. He became, for Mark, not a weight but a living reminder of a love that had never disappeared. Johnny, always believing that the deepest stories are in the things left unsaid, knew that true transformation lay in listening. It was in seeing what no one else wanted to see. Every life matters, Johnny said in an interview, his eyes full of meaning. Every story matters, even if it's not told in words. Phoenix wasn't just a dog. He became a symbol of resilience, of memories that endure, and the invisible connections between humans and animals. He taught us that sometimes the greatest transformation comes from where we least expect it, from those who are in silence, cast aside by society. Pay attention to what isn't said. Johnny concluded, looking at the Los Angeles sky, where the stars were starting to shine. Sometimes what isn't spoken is what matters most. Be the hero of a story that needs to be told. See beyond the obvious. Listen to the silence, because sometimes what isn't spoken is what matters most.